ebyobufuzi, ebyenfuna, eddiini, ennono n'ebyobuwangwa byonna bisange wano ku Olutimbe TV.
Olutimbe TV. Be informed.
Mwenna abatulaba ku Olutimbe TV twebaza tikimukola kyansuso nnyo okubanga musalawo okutulindirira okubatuusako amawulire ago agesigika naddala agabawo okwetooloola mu ggwanga lyattu Uganda, okwetooloola ssemazinga wa Africa ssaako n'ensi yonna okutwaliza awamu nga bulijjo. Njigajja Williams nze atuuse okubanga nkutuusaako amawulire ago g'osaanidde okubanga omanya g'otaategedde oba agabadde ebunaayira gwe gy'otaabadde. Ffe tweyama nga Nafu Media Uganda nga tuyitira ku Lutimbe TV ne tusobola okubanga tubyekenneenya ne tubisikirayo ne tusobola okubanga tubitegeeza ku Lutimbe TV nga bulijjo. Just genda bugenzi ku YouTube kamu ekigambo Olutimbe TV osubscribinge tusobole okuba nga tugenda mu maaso awo kitegeeza buli mawulire nga tutaddeyo ojja kubanga ogifuna mu bujjufu osobole okubanga omanya litya eggwanga litambula oba gye lituuseemu mu nsonga zino. Mpozi olunaku olwaleero omukulu Robert Kyagulanyi Ssentamu mumulabye emirundi mingi nnyo tumulabyeko nga afuluma eggwanga lyattu Uganda. Mwana wattu nno ekyo nga kyayongedde okuleeta ebibuuzo bingi oba okwemulugunya mu baministers ab'eggwanga lya Uganda oba abali wansi wa President Museveni ng'ono ye mukulembeze w'eggwanga Uganda bwe twogerera nga beemulugunya ku nfuluma oba entambula za Robert Kyagulanyi Ssentamu naddala eyo ng'agenda ebweru w'eggwanga Uganda. Tumulabyeko nnyo ng'agenda Ukraine, Dubai ng'agenda wa so bavuddeyo ng'abeemulugunya ku nteekateeka ezo naye n'asalawo afune option endala oluusi nga tayagala kubanga anyiiza abakulu abo. Robert Kyagulanyi Ssentamu twamulabyeko nga ali Zoom ng'alina abakulu basobodde okubanga asinkana nabo naddala okubaganya ku nsonga ez'enjawulo. Era Robert Kyagulanyi Ssentamu nga asinzum yasobodde okubanga asinkana omukulu Jeffrey Smith ng'ono akola n'omukuto gwa BBC basobodde okubanga bakwasaganya ne basobole okubanga bateesa ku nsonga ez'enjawulo. Yasobodde okubanga asinkana abantu banjawulo okwabadde Zakaria Manfield ng'ono naye yasobodde okubanga yeetaba mu lutuula luno nga luno kyenyiza okubanga nkujjukiza babadde ku Zoom oba nga video call wetuyinza okubanga tukiyita kwe bayitidde ne basobola okubanga bateesa ku nsonga ez'enjawulo nga beebuuza Africa eyimiridde etya mu mbeera naddala eddembe ly'abantu likwatiddwa litya oba embeera America ensonga ezo yo ezitunulidde etya. Omukulu yabaddeyo omulala yabadde Mantate Moswa Queen ng'ono ava mu ggwanga erya Zimbabwe naye yasobodde okubanga yeetaba mu lutuula luno kwe kwabale n'omukyala Kawal ng'ono ava mu ggwanga erya Cameroon ng'ono amanya g'amatuufu ye Edith Kabang Wala ng'ava mu ggwanga erya Cameroon y'omu ku abo bannabyabufuzi abali ku ludda olw'obala gavumenti mu ggwanga eryo naye sogga ebyobufuzi by'eggwanga erya Cameroon mu mwaka gwa 2007 ng'ayitira mu kibiina ekya Social Democratic Front. Omukulu omulala yasobodde okubanga yeetaba mu lutuula luno yabadde N. Chesman. Bangi basobodde okubanga bakubaganya ku nsonga ez'enjawulo.
Thank you very much, Jeff, and greetings to all of you, ladies and gentlemen. I'm very glad to be here. Although I'm introduced as Bobi Wine, which I appreciate, Bobi Wine is just a nickname that is unfortunately overtaking my real name. My name is Kyagulanyi Ssentamu Mitembo, and I lead the National Unity Platform Party, but I like to also introduce myself as an artist and a common Ugandan. First of all, I want to appreciate the collaboration of the United States with Uganda because, I mean, it identifies us as a state that is worth associating with. However, the collaboration comes largely to the detriment of the people of Uganda, well knowing that the fact is that Uganda has been under the military dictatorship of General Museveni for the last 36 years. For the last 36 years, Uganda has seen gross human rights abuses. Today, as we speak, abductions are the order of the day, and this is open. Torture is the order of the day, and this is open. The regime does not hide it anymore. Unfortunately, even though every once in a while we get strong statements from the United States, those statements have become more or less cliche. The United States supports the Uganda military with approximately $1 billion annually. Never mind the fact that it is open that the Uganda military is culpable for gross human rights abuses. It is heading the Uganda military and police is heading the list of gross human rights abusers. The United States continue to sponsor that. Why do I say the US continues to sponsor that? Because they know what exactly they are sponsoring. Many times we've raised our voices to the United States, asking them to make the respect of democracy, the rule of law, and respect for human rights preconditions for collaboration. It is sad that we have not had a strong response in terms of action, thereby, confirming that indeed the United States is in many ways sponsoring Operation Back Home. Now, I'll close by saying that the United States, when you are introducing it, you introduce it as the world's greatest democracy. So isn't it hypocritical for the world's greatest democracy to be the biggest sponsor of the abuse of democracy in Uganda? That's a question that I will leave to the United States, knowing that if America was led by a leader that will, be in power for 36 years, it probably would not be the great democracy, the great country that we all look up to. So the question is, does America want Uganda to be a democracy, a strong democracy like America, or do they still want us to just be as a pawn? As we discuss, maybe we'll attempt that. I thank you, Jeff.
Thank you so much, Bobi. I like where you started because it leads me to the question I was going to follow up with, because you said, so I was just alluding to the fact that you gave a good background of what the US is doing to contribute to the human rights situation in Uganda. And my follow-up question was going to center around looking at the future. What, in your view, is something that the US could do that could be helpful in improving the situation in your country? If you had a moment with the president, for instance, the president of America and the Secretary of State, what would be your message to them?
In one statement, I would say, do not sponsor our oppression. Do not pay our oppressors, because Uganda largely depends on foreign aid, and the US being our biggest donor, they know what exactly they are sponsoring. We could write a whole book about that, but our request has been precise. Please make democracy, the rule of law, and respect for human rights preconditions for collaboration, because it shouldn't be charity, it's collaboration. These are a collaboration of equals. Let it be about the values that bring us together: democracy, respect for human rights, and the rule of law.
Thank you so much, Bobi. I think I'll bring in Kawala into the conversation, because as an advocate for human rights, you've also seen many occasions in which the United States has pushed hard to defend human rights and punish human rights violators. But you're also coming from a country where the US, along with others such as the EU and France, have formed long-standing partnerships with authoritarian incumbents and so become complicit in human rights violation. Do you see the US as a genuine partner, particularly looking at your country?
Thank you very much, Jeff. I want to thank Ka for being straightforward. But that's typical of African women, very straightforward. I am personally struggling to be polite in my communication because I don't want to sound angry, but I'm actually angry. You know, I'm trying as much as possible to avoid words like hypocrisy, words like intellectual dishonesty. However, Car represents me a great deal. We indeed are not asking the United States to save us. We are only saying, stop sponsoring our oppression. We are not asking you to come save us. We are trying to save ourselves, but we're being held back, you know, because we are trying to fight to save ourselves, but we cannot fight against the American dollars. We cannot fight against the American trained soldiers and the American weapons. I will also want to add a word too about the issue of interest. And Carl mentioned it. It's about interest. Unfortunately, these interests in many ways come off not as moral interests. Because the first interest that brings us together as international community is morality, moral interests. However, General Museveni, in our case, and just like many other dictators all over the world, particularly in Africa, have learned how to play the interests of the international community. For example, in the context of Uganda, when General Museveni is drawing closer to the Chinese and closer to the Russians, he plays a blackmail card. He blackmails the United States, and you will find the United States rushing to deal with General Museveni in order not him to go deal with China. In any case, China and in many ways Russia, you know, give aid, mainly military aid to Uganda without any condition. They don't put conditions of human rights. They don't put conditions of democracy because they're not democratic themselves. So that way, the United States seems to be falling in the trap. I want to believe that the United States knows exactly what they are doing. And it frustrates many democracy lovers to see that democracy and human rights is put on the periphery. This is just business. And I want to say that that is immoral. And also, the United States frustrates democracy lovers and lovers of institutions when they move on to deal with General Museveni as an individual. And I want to believe the same thing with other dictators like in Cameroon and others, you know, dealing with an individual, not a nation that, you know, legitimizes the takeover of institutions here in Uganda. A few days ago, Ugandans were horrified by a statement that was made by the United States representative to the United Nations, Linda Thomas Greenfield, that is the United States representative to the United States. She said a few days ago, and I quote, I want to quote, "We, the United States, still have a strong partnership with General Museveni. He has been and continues to be a strong leader in the region." Now, the United States, I wonder how it's going to explain to the world that it's not propping up strong men instead of strong institutions. So this comes at the backdrop of a rigged election. Last year, the United States Foreign Department issued a statement discrediting the 2021 presidential elections, where United States election observers were blocked from observing that election, an election that happened with a closed internet. I was the main challenger to General Museveni, but I was put under house arrest. My entire campaign team was arrested. Many of them are still languishing in military prison. Many people were massacred on the 18th and 19th of November 2020 during the campaign. Just a few days from now, we're going to be observing the second anniversary of that mass murder. Unfortunately, with all that, the United States tends to continue hobnobbing with the dictatorship. So I want to conclude by saying that the United States looks really with a tainted image, hobnobbing with a known dictator, and yet it is known as the world's greatest democracy. Thank you.
who wants to know a little bit more about what Museveni does to make himself so attractive to America. I mean, what has he done over the past 20 years to get this kind of lock on international support, where, as you said, he can commit the most heinous human rights abuses and still remain a key partner? What is he doing? How is he doing it? Are others following suit? Asks a questioner on our WhatsApp.
Thank you very much. You will allow me answer the question in two ways. First, what he has been doing. I can be sure of what he has been doing and maybe suggest on what he is doing. What General Museveni has been doing for the last 36 years is painting a rosy picture of his rule and Uganda. He has been able to smartly deceive the international community. You will notice that President Bill Clinton back in the 90s described General Museveni as a new breed of leaders. 36 years in power, General Museveni has spent a lot of billions of taxpayers' money in Uganda, paying lobbyists in the international community, paying companies to paint a rosy picture of his rule. And yes, he has presented himself as a benevolent dictator, as a Democrat. And part of our effort was to show, to unmask, to pull off the mask of General Museveni. When I ran for president last year, it's not that I was not aware of the situation. I was aware of the militarism, but because we knew that we had media on us, we wanted the international community to see what General Museveni is realistically. And we were able to show the world. The world can no longer pretend not to know what General Museveni is. The United States can no longer pretend not to know that they are propping up a tyrant. And we always have put a question that when Taylor did to the Liberians what General Museveni is doing to Ugandans, he was sanctioned. When Mugabe did what Museveni is doing, he was sanctioned. When Saddam Hussein did what General Museveni is doing, he was sanctioned. When Idi Amin did what General Museveni is doing, he was sanctioned. Why then General Museveni is not being sanctioned? We believe that the United States, in many ways, it's looking at interests. And many times they've pointed at security and the war against terrorism, which we agree with. But we have told them time and again that they should deal with the country, not an individual. They should deal with institutions, not an individual. So I can say that I know what General Museveni has been doing in the past, lying and deceiving and painting a rosy picture of democracy and putting up fake elections to justify that we have democracy. But right now, just last year, the United States election observers were blocked from observing the elections. The United States knows that besides all the massacres that have been carried out, besides the Kasese massacre, just 2 years ago, just under 2 years ago, more than 150 innocent citizens were massacred on the street, and nothing has happened. So allow me to throw back the question on the table, what General Museveni is doing right, and also to ask that, is the international community, is the United States, enticed by evil? Is it enticed by violence? Is it trying to prove to us that we who are nonviolent cannot be supported, but those that are violent are supported? That's a question that I want to bounce back to you.
Thanks so much, Bobby. I think
you mean the leaders?
Internet, other donors, other different countries, different leaders who.
Without a doubt, the international donors are doing a great job. And I'll speak in the context of Uganda, where the government has completely failed to deliver services. It will be recalled that even the COVID-19 funds, the funds that were extended to Uganda to fight COVID-19, were all mismanaged. Today, the government of Uganda was told by the donor community that it's not going to be given cash, but it will be given utilities and the medicines and the things that are needed to fight Ebola-19. Unfortunately, the government of Uganda is still insisting they want cash. Why? Because cash is easy to to mismanage, and that is what the Ugandan government is known for. We continue to appreciate the friends, the governments, and the donor community that continue to support the people of Uganda, the people of Africa, in terms of healthcare, in terms of education, and otherwise. Also, individuals like yourself, individuals like my brother Jeff Smith here, and all the friends of Africa that continue to raise our voices. I must say that our voices alone as Africans are not enough. In many ways, we try to be as polite as possible, but our friends, the sons and daughters of those developed countries, the great democracies, have actually gone a notch higher to call out those governments, which is the right thing to do. They are doing a good job. So, yeah, while those that are supposed to be doing the job are not doing it, those that are whose responsibility it is not are actually doing a good job, and we appreciate them. Of course, the citizens are doing a great job. They are paying a high price, arrests, brutalization, even death, but they are still standing strong. I cannot forget to give thanks to them. I also want to conclude by reiterating the question, but rather this time in the assertive. The question was more or less like, does the United States administration do more on democracy or do less by stepping aside and not propping up the tyrants? I would say that the United States can and should do more to defend democracy, because that's a value, that's what brings us together, to defend human rights. And I will note that here in the context of Uganda, a few years ago, the government of Uganda passed an anti-gay law, and the United States and all other international communities rose up in arms. They cut all the aid, they cut all collaboration with the government of Uganda until that law was, recalled. Now, this was a law that was against the minority, the rights of the minority, and the United States put its foot down. How about when the rights of the majority are being abused? I thought the United States is supposed to take the same stand, or an even firmer stand. Unfortunately, it has not been the case. So I want to mention that the United States should do more in regards to defending democracy, the rule of law, and human rights. And yes, do less on propping up tyrants.
Thanks so much, Bobby.
Era basobodde okwamuka ng'ensonga nnyingi zikoneddwako, kyetusuubira nti lugenda kuvaamu ebibala bingi nnyo. Mwebale nnyo okubanga mutugoberera. Tubeera ku Lutimbe TV, just subscribinga, olikinge, ofollowinge, saako ne comment, tujja kubanga tugifuna bulungi nnyo, tusobole okubanga twongera okutuusaako ebyoyina okuba nga weetaaga.